Hey everyone, I'm Eric. I'm going to be your tour guide today. Welcome to Georgetown. If you look behind you, you'll see Lavender Library, which is actually modeled after a medieval prison. Why are you looking at your phone?
Oh, I'm just looking at updates on the Fisher v. Texas case that the Supreme Court is deciding this summer. Did you know the essential question is whether the University of Texas's special admission process for minority students is narrowly tailored, meaning that it is sufficient to build a critical mass of diversity in a way that couldn't be achieved by any other means?
Wow, you're a politics nerd. You'd be perfect here.
It's just so fascinating. I didn't realize that the Department of Education reports that since the 1980s, students of color have increased their attendance at universities by 57%. Affirmative action must work.
Well, I don't know. How can we prove that that increase is due to affirmative action policies and not other factors like, more awareness about college options or financial aid? Like, I get it. We all agree that diversity in the classroom is a good thing, but can we create a diverse class without using race as an admissions factor?
Well, we do know that in 1996, all the University of California schools banned affirmative action. In order to reestablish diversity in schools, they began some initiatives, such as outreach programs for disadvantaged children, grades K through 12.
I don't know. I feel like not having yearly quotas about how many minority students are allowed in the class, it kind of comes across as reverse racism.
Actually, racial quotas are no longer allowed. After the 1978 Supreme Court case, Bakke versus Regents, racial quotas were ruled unconstitutional. Race can still be used in college admissions, but only as one factor in a holistic review process.
But how does affirmative action affect minority students themselves?
Well, I read a study in the Civil Rights Project at UCLA that getting rid of affirmative action actually leads to Black and Latino students feeling like their race is less respected in schools.
So what about Asian Americans? According to LA Times, looking at the student population with identical grades, Asians have the lowest acceptance rate to universities. Also, Asians need to score 140 points higher on the SAT to be on the same place with the whites in applying to universities. So
does anybody have any questions about the tour so far? Yeah.
How does Georgetown admissions deal with affirmative action?
I actually just talked with Dean Williams about this yesterday.
Really?
In American higher education, it is better, I would think, to have the voices of as much of America as possible. The idea is to remedy, in some cases, as many as 2 centuries of conscious exclusion. To ask, okay, well, when have you stopped excluding is a tricky question. To my mind, you stopped excluding when there are no preferences, which is to say you can't look at that school and say, oh, that's a white school. The idea of sort of changing the way you normally do things. Georgetown is one of the several schools that still relies heavily on standardized test scores, which automatically creates a level of white privilege. And Georgetown is also one of several schools that relies heavily on certain kinds of feeder schools, which also creates a level of white privilege automatically. And so as long as we do those things, we have to do some other things, look at some other things differently in order to try and balance things out.
Well, this sounds really great. Why are we still talking about affirmative action now?
Actually, the Fisher case you mentioned earlier has the potential to completely eradicate affirmative action from current policy. If Fisher wins against the University of Texas, then no public university will be able to have affirmative action programs in place due to their Title VII funding they receive from the government. And this could also lead to future litigation against private universities such as Georgetown, that they will also not be able to have affirmative action programs in place in the universities, since it'll follow from the Fisher decision.
Really interesting.
Thank you all so much for coming on this tour. I hope you learned a lot about Georgetown. Hoya Saxa.